Namaste, dear listeners. Welcome to the AIWA channel, Astro In with Abhi. Oneness in Astrology and Spirituality, bringing in awareness by Abhi. Now, thank you so much for your continuous support. Thank you for being on my TikTok lives. Thank you for all your wonderful reviews. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for also guiding me on how to look. I don't think that's appropriate to discuss now on the podcast, but for those of you who know what I'm talking about, just thank you for giving me feedback, basically, right? So we've made a few podcasts in relation to the ego, and why I specifically talk about the ego so often is because man's biggest downfall is the ego. If you look at every downfall of man, it has been because of the ego. It's the only thing that brings man down. It's his ego. It's the false self. It's the it's that which man uses as a form of defense, a defense mechanism. It's the ego. Because man has identified with himself with all the wrong things. He has never looked at his true self. Therefore, such a person uses the ego as a frontage, and it's bound to be misery in the end. Now, the actual question that was given to me, it, it, it comes from the TikTok lives, and I've received this question many times before. I've answered it on the lives, and I think for as a point of reference, this kind of a question always comes in when there's a Mercury retrograde. So I can safely tell you that even though I'm doing this podcast, the next retrograde that I do on the live, when I'm giving my general reports, I'm going to get that same question. Dear listeners, as spirit souls, as beings we are, having a material experience, we must understand that the beauty of life can only be seen if we include the spiritual experience dovetailed with the material experience. Without transcending beyond the material existence of life, one can never achieve happiness. One can never achieve peace. It's impossible. It's impossible to be peaceful if one haven't shifted consciousness from that of the entanglement of nature of the material world to the untangling of the material comforts. So the question is, Abhi, during a Mercury retrograde, why is it so difficult to have a healthy conversation with my partner? Why is it so difficult to maintain a healthy relationship with my partner? Why is it so difficult to be understood? Why is there so much of fighting? Why is there so much of blocking? Why is there so much of negative energy in the relationship? These are the questions. Why is it during a Mercury retrograde there's so much of quarreling in the house? Why is it during the Mercury retrograde I feel that life is so difficult? Why is it? I will always get these questions on a Mercury retrograde. Even though I answer it, I will still have you ask me the same thing, because up until you don't understand what Mercury governs, you will never be able to understand my explanation. So it's important to look at what Mercury governs first. Now, Mercury governs the movement or the transmitting of energy, communication. Mercury governs the movement of energy. Mercury governs the how technology behaves. If you look at Mercury, Mercury itself is a very important element. And some say it's Mercury is the messenger of all the gods. The gods are the actual planets. So Mercury is that planet that allows for the channeling or the movement of energy that is coming from all other planets. Or if you look at it in the body, Mercury is that which is responsible for the movement of energy within the body. And when Mercury goes retrograde, energy doesn't flow like how it normally should be flowing. Mercury slows down. So things can be not heard properly or understood properly during a Mercury retrograde. Delays, frustration, and this will happen externally. Cancellation of meetings, cancellations of appointments, delays, missing flights. Why? Because all of this energy that's happening within you, now depending on which area of your life Mercury is retrograding in which house it is, Mercury will impact that area of your life where you'll have delays, frustration. Why? Because, and also with the body, if you look at the actual body, that part, if you look at the body itself, that house or area of your life also governs certain parts of the body. So those parts of your body is not getting that energy that it needs. So there's a slowdown. So in most cases, Mercury, I'd like to describe as the planet that governs the mind. I would like to describe it like that. If the mind is not functioning at its peak, how can you give off peak information? It's not a good time to put anything in motion. It's not a good time to start anything. During a Mercury retrograde, a lot of people want to start discussing important things in the relationship. A lot of people want to start discussing maybe a child will bring peace in the relationship. Maybe commitment, maybe getting married is going to bring peace in the relationship. Maybe going on a nice holiday will bring peace in the relationship. For me, a Mercury retrograde means this much. It's a time for going back in time and start ironing out all the things that brought disappointment in the relationship. What are the things that brought disappointment in the relationship? And there's no you, me, your fault, my fault, this and that. What there is there's issues. Let's forget about whose fault it is. Here's the issue. I feel that, for example, I feel that whenever you do say something, the way you come across is pushing me to a point where I'm feeling that I'm either being belittled or you're trying to be dominant or whatever. Maybe I'm feeling wrong. Show me that I'm feeling wrong. Or if not, then maybe you need to change how you come across to me. I'm using it as an example, guys. That's what Mercury retrograde, the best thing for you to do. This is my awareness as an astrologer. Other astrologers might explain it to you differently. But based on my awareness, my insight, based on my dimension of perception, I'm seeing it this way. This is the best time to relook at everything, how the relationship is behaving, and discuss these things. Not discussing commitment and maybe planning a wedding or going on a holiday or all of these kind of things. No, it's a time for introspection. It's a time of looking at the relationship, looking at the ground, and trying to strengthen it. That's what is required in a Mercury retrograde. Trying to strengthen the ground, because without a strong ground, as above so below, as below so above, without a strong grounding, the relationship will never hit great heights. Every time you move upwards, you keep coming back down to sort out the groundwork. Every time you're moving 10 steps forward, you will come 10 steps back, because you'll have to come back to the ground and do the groundwork. So for me, my personal advice is never to push forward during a Mercury retrograde in anything when it comes to a relationship. What you should be doing is to start looking at the development areas that's bringing in the misery in the relationship, taking accountability. Once you take accountability, this is where things start to take shape in the relationship. But today's people don't want to take accountability. People find it very difficult to say, you know what, I've been wrong here and I know what to do. Why? Because people do not want to surrender the ego. And because the ego is at play, this is the reason why Mercury is considered a retrograde, is in inverted commas a difficult time. Mercury retrograde is not a difficult time. It's a difficult time because the ego is at play. In fact, I love a Mercury retrograde because it's the best time for me to start working on my skills. It's the best time for me to start polishing up on things that I've started. It's the best time for me to look at things where I need development. It's the best time for me to look at development areas. It's the best time for me to upskill myself. And I promise you, every time there's a Mercury retrograde, once Mercury goes direct, I have always mastered something. Guys, I'm speaking from a very humble space, but I use a Mercury retrograde to master a certain skill. Sometimes it may take me 2 Mercury retrogrades to master one skill. Sometimes it may take me 4 retrogrades. In 1 year, you can have 2, 3 Mercury retrogrades. But I can promise you this much. In that 1.5 year period, for me, I've mastered a skill which I can then apply it in a certain facet of my life, which is also transferable to other facets of life, which is also transferable to other people, and one of it is what I'm delivering here on this podcast. I love Mercury retrogrades. I love Saturn retrogrades. I love all retrogrades because I know what it is doing and I know how to use the retrograde at my advantage. And the problem is you don't know. And even when I do tell you what to do, you still ignore it because you don't feel that these things are strong enough, or you feel that your mind basically is too weak. Your mind is controlling you. Once you start controlling the mind and you allow it to think what it wants to do at your consent, then I can tell you, you will then learn how to work or master Mercury retrograde. Once you learn how to be in control of the mind, then you will master the do's and don'ts during a Mercury retrograde. And the quarreling is happening at home. Why? Because nobody wants to take accountability, the ego. And once the ego is at play, this is where people start despising each other. Yes, this is the reason why the most hurtful words come out during a Mercury retrograde. Because of the despise. People, maybe you feel that you have to pull out all your hair for your partner to understand you, and still they're not understanding you. So you blame it on the Mercury retrograde. It's not the retrograde. The answer is simple. If you feel somebody is not understanding you, walk away from the relationship. Mercury retrograde is also a very good time to look at your situation and use your intelligence, your intellect. This is something that is very detrimental for me. For example, like this year, I'm in this relationship. It's very detrimental for me because I'm seeing this person, they're unable to take accountability, and I'm not going to wait for them to take accountability. I can see the dangers of these qualities, and I'm not going to poison myself. So thank you very much. It's time for me to walk away from this relationship and heal. When you start talking like this here and implementing these things in your life, this is self-love. There is another question somebody asked me. This is from one of my loyal clients. How to develop self-love. To develop self-love, you need to know what self is firstly. So I hope you understand, guys, that how does one, why is there so much of fights during Mercury retrograde? Why is there so much of complaints? Why is there so much of frustration? There is all of this because the ego is at play and one doesn't know when the time is up. Not all relationships are meant to last you forever. Jai Shri Ram, Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Shri Krishna, Hari Bol, and thank you.